So, all about EMBASE. Today, I am Kelli Hines. I'm from Western University of Health Sciences, and welcome to Scholarly Snippets. It's a part of series to help you advance your research skills and support your scholarly activities. So today, you're going to be able to, by the end of this workshop, identify when EMBASE would be a useful database to search, assuming that you have access to it, and be able to use the advanced features like the PICO search, controlled language, proximity searching, and filters to narrow your search results. And I'll also show you the PV Wizard tool to find articles about the adverse effects of drugs and medical devices. So basically, EMBASE is good for, it's primarily designed for drug research, pharmacology, and pharmacy. So that's its main strength. But it also has a variety of other biomedical research, biomedical literature. My colleague in the School of Optometry has found it very useful for ophthalmology, particularly because EMBASE tends to be a little bit more international in scope than PubMed, particularly in its coverage of Asian, African, and South American countries. And so sometimes like finding like neglected tropical diseases and things like that, and also ophthalmology, you'll find that. It also has more journals indexed in it than PubMed. So it can be helpful, I find, to search PubMed and then also search EMBASE, kind of tag team both of them. And it's also good for finding surveys and measures, not necessarily the surveys or measures themselves, but identifying which surveys and measures are used to test a particular concept. And that's indexed in the controlled language, and it's actually very robust. I was surprised to find this. So, but that's just helpful for it as well. This is the scope of coverage, so I'll let you screenshot. I'm not going to read all of that, but this is basically what it covers. So if you're looking for any of these topics, EMBASE is great. If you're looking for more social sciences, humanities, anything like that, it's not going to be your tool. So make sure that you're searching for what's in here and not what's not. It has a variety of filters that you can use. It can filter by source, so whether it's just EMBASE or whether it's also indexed in Medline or PubMed. You can filter by drugs and diseases, which is really nice because you can actually get a quick feel for what diseases are most common for the treatment for a particular drug, or vice versa, which drugs are used to treat which diseases. Then there are also a variety of others, your standard year of publication, publication types. It also has a variety of conference abstracts. So it's really good for searching the gray literature as well if you're doing a systematic review. And then it has drug trade names, manufacturers, and then device trade names and manufacturers as well if you're searching for some of those specific type of information. So the filters in EMBASE are just on the left-hand side that you can see, and also at the top, you can have language filters and quick evidence-based medicine filters as well. And when I do the demo, we'll go through that and we'll play around with those filters a bit, and people give me topics that they want to search, and we'll try those out. One of the really nice things about EMBASE is it has what's called the triple filter. And so it creates a semantic relationship between concepts. So on the drugs filter, if you click on the details link, you'll be able to see subheadings and then link it with other things. So in this case, I've done oxycodone plus paracetamol. I've checked special situations for pharmacovigilance, and you can see articles about drug abuse and drug overdose. So this would let you find articles that are specifically about drug abuse and drug overdose of oxycodone plus paracetamol, which is an extremely specific search, but it creates that linkage that can be really, really helpful if you're looking for a very specialized topic. Or if you just like going down a quick rabbit hole, that's also a perfectly legitimate search strategy. Embase also has controlled language, just like PubMed's is mesh. Embase's is Emtree. And so what this does is it will map topic tags. I like to explain it to students as kind of like a hashtag for databases. So it has your one preferred term and it maps all of the synonyms to that. So it lets you search more precisely without necessarily worrying about what are all of the different synonyms that you could search for it. So Embase's controlled language is called Emtree, and you can search articles with the term as a major focus using /MJ, and you can explode the search to include narrower terms in the search tree using /EXP, which stands for explosion, which sounds much cooler than it is, I guess. It is actually pretty cool though, because it basically lets you search below it on the concept tree. And when I do the demo, you'll get a little bit more of a feel for what I mean by that. So this, for example, is what it looks like. So you would go to Emtree right there at the top. You can type in the term that you're looking for. And so you could see that the term is for coronavirus is coronavirinae. And so if you did explode, you would search alpha coronavirus, beta coronavirus, gamma coronavirus, and any of the other subheadings beneath those. And if you checked the as major focus button, all of the articles would have coronavirus as a major topic, as opposed to just having coronavirus somewhere in there, especially now that, after the post-pandemic, where everything just might have coronavirus like maybe mentioned like one place in the article or in the abstract, but not actually be about a particular coronavirus. So you can use this kind of find articles that have been tagged as being about that particular topic. And then you can also in Embase use Boolean operators for today, a little pun for today's month of spooky season. So if you use and between two different terms, it will only get the intersection of ones that have both. If it's or, it's either one or both. You can always think or is more. And if you use not, then it will eliminate the term after the not. So one, like during the pandemic, someone was looking for articles about, I believe, like coughing or like sore throat or like difficulty breathing, but they knew it wasn't COVID. And so they wanted to eliminate that. So they just did not COVID. So they could actually get the articles that they were looking for, because nearly every article at that time was in some way about the coronavirus, due to the state of the emergency. But since that wasn't what he was looking for, you could eliminate that. And another function that's really neat is you can do what's called proximity searching. And these are using near and next. So near / a particular number, it'll find words within that number of spaces of each other in either direction. So therapy near 5 sleep would find therapy as well as therapy for improved sleep. But next, it keeps them in the order that they were typed. So therapy next 5 sleep would not find sleep therapy, but it would pull up articles for therapy for improved sleep. So I'm actually going to go ahead and switch over to Embase and do a quick demo, but we'll have, I'll have people share in the chat kind of what types of things they want me to look for, because I'm always happy to look for what you want to know. So give me something to search for. You can either unmute or type it into the chat.
So I recently had one of our physicians at one of my nursing homes want me to do some research on pulmonary embolisms and the COVID vaccine.
Okay.
So that's been something I've been working on for the past couple of weeks. I'd like to see what we get from this. Thank
Yeah,
you.
okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, okay. All right. So we have 603 results that come up. Well, we've used the and. Um, so we'll see what comes up, and we'll actually try this search. We can try this search a few um, different ways. So we have you know these different ones. We can see the abstract and see if it's going to be um, relevant for us. But we can also use these filters so we can see, okay, the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine. So we can click on the details. So we could they might have been looking, for example, for adverse drug reactions related to the SARS-CoV vaccine. So let's see, so we can click on adverse drug reaction. Okay, so we can do a lung embolism. Let's see what other ones might be relevant. Please feel free to tell me if, as I'm scrolling through, you see anything that maybe venous thromboembolism.
Yes,
Uh,
yes,
okay,
let's add
great.
that one as well. Thank you.
That one as well. Great. Heart arrhythmia, yes, no. Cardiovascular disease, blood clotting disorder. Okay.
Maybe the
Pulmonary
pulmonary
thrombosis,
thrombosis. Yes,
thromboembolism,
yes,
vein thrombosis.
and
Great. Okay.
vein. Yes.
Great, great, great. So, I don't know if portal vein thrombosis is or not, but okay, so we can see we'll throw heart failure in there too. That seems relevant. Okay, so yeah, we can see sort of different ones. So we'll pull those for now, but yeah, there's a whole list of different ones. Okay, and we can apply. And so that's an example of using that triple filter semantic search. So the medically attenuated acute adverse events in pregnant people after COVID booster vaccination. Okay, so yeah, you can see the different ones, pooled results on first dose of cohort monitoring, a systematic review of cardiovascular complication, thrombosis, and thrombocytopenia. So this one seems like it would be particularly relevant for you. So you can, so you would look at that as well. So yeah, you could see thrombosis and thrombocytopenia after vaccination against SARS-CoV-2 in the United Kingdom. So yeah, you could see um, those different ones that are systematic review such events in 286 patients. So yeah, you could look at those and you see the adverse effects. So this is a much more targeted set of results than the first set that came up. So you can really see the usefulness of that particular linking. And so yeah, and you can use the filters to, for example, limit by by publication types or by study design. So you could say, cohort analysis. You could limit to, to human, controlled studies, meta-analysis. For this particular case, you may not, case reports might be fine, but, you can also limit by the different cohort studies or clinical trials, probably cohort studies and systematic reviews for those outcomes. Yeah, and you can, if you had already done like the search in EMBASE, you could also click on the sources and limit to just articles that were in EMBASE as well. If you wanted, preprints, you could have those. You could say only in English. If that's all that you read or speak, you can limit that. Okay, so that took out one that was probably perhaps not in English or not an EMBASE, but yeah. And then the EBM filters, you can limit by systematic reviews, controlled clinical trials, randomized control trials, or Cochrane reviews as well. So those are just kind of quick filters as well. So you can use the filters at the top and at the bottom And you can see different, diseases as well that are kind of associated with that vaccine. So sometimes you can see just kind of, the different results, and just kind of looking at the filters will give you an idea of kind of which diseases are more common given the search that you've done, or which drugs are used for, that particular thing. So yeah, so that's an example of that type of search. If we go into Emtree, we could search for pulmonary embolism and see what comes up. Okay, it says use lung embolism. But you can also see, I'm actually just going to search and see what comes up. So it shows that the preferred term is lung embolism. You can see that there are also different indexes, so that the pulmonary embolism severity index. So you can see that that's, for example, a survey or a measure that is used to measure I guess in this case, the severity of pulmonary embolisms. But if you did a term, for example, for quality of life, you can see like quality of life assessment. You can see a whole variety of, for example, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Questionnaire, the European Organization for Research Quality of Life, European Quality of Life 5-Dimension Questionnaire, Living with Heart Failure Questionnaire, Quality of Life Enjoyment and Satisfaction Questionnaire. So you can see a whole variety beneath these. So if you did the quality of life assessment and chose explode, it would automatically search all of these. But if you wanted to search just a particular one, then you could click on that, and you could say, I want to add this to my query builder. Oh, and I've already added non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. Okay, so EMBASE, when it's combining terms, it defaults to or. A lot of other databases default and, but I'm just going to do and. And so this would, for example, pull up articles about diabetes mellitus and using that particular questionnaire. Yes, Sandy, you had a question.
I do. So could you go back to the Emtree when you're looking at explode versus synonyms? So
okay, yeah.
My question is, when you're building out a big search for a scoping review or a systematic review, if you use the synonym, the /syn, do you still then have to add in all the keyword terms as keywords, or does that automatically do that for you in EMBASE?
Okay, so great question. Let's look for one. Let's look for a term. Okay. So this shows what the synonyms are, and these are automatically included. So if you search using explode, explosion. So explosion, so you can see explosion gets this number of results. Explosion and all synonyms gets these searches. So if you wanted to add the synonyms, then yes, a broader result for like a scoping review, you might want to use SYN instead of just the explosion, because that would do the explosion in all synonyms. Great question. That's actually something new that I learned.
And why wouldn't you do that all the time? Why wouldn't you want all the synonyms included?
Sometimes, because sometimes it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. Sometimes you want really broad results, and sometimes you want really precise results. And there's no perfect search that will only get you all of what you want and none of what you don't. So it just kind of depends on whether you're prioritizing precision or recall. And if you're doing a scoping review or systematic review, you might be prioritizing recall over precision. But for example, if you're looking in a clinical situation, for example, and you're looking for more of a quick answer, or you don't necessarily have time. You want something that's very precise and targeted, and you don't have time to dig through a lot of things that might be relevant but probably aren't going to be. Then you would want to target, just like, for example, the major, do it as a major focus, for example.
I guess I look at them as equating to entry terms for PubMed, and that's why I tend to use the /SYN over just explode.
Yeah, no, and that's
I just
yeah,
want to
and
see
that's
how other
perfectly,
people thought of it.
yeah, that's a perfectly valid preference, and everyone's going to. I mean, I think explode is kind of like the default that it adds. Like if you just kind of like type a term in, it will kind of like automatically do the explode, but you don't have to explode. And if you don't, in fact, it will, so if you just don't, if you just, I think, if you just don't explode it. So like, let's add it to the query builder. If we just don't explode it, like we just, let's say we don't explode it, so like that one wouldn't include the short form, that actually gets us more results. And like, so if we don't explode it, like let's say, or we can, one of the nice things about EMBASE is that you can kind of see as it goes what you type in changes your search results. But no, that's a great question. Any other questions currently, like about EMBASE or EMTree, or kind of or about like the filters? So we could do yes, Sunny.
Hey, Kelly. I was actually one who put in a question about comparing the different EMBASE interface. I have it through Ovid, and
Okay.
I don't see the synonym option. We do have explode and focus.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it kind of makes me wonder if we're losing out on certain aspects of the full functionality of EMBASE because we have it through the Ovid platform versus getting it through Elsevier.
That is a great question. I don't know. That is entirely possible, I suppose. But yeah, that'd probably be a question for the vendor, but it is possible. So that would be another question of like, why would you search SYN all the time? Maybe you don't have access to it, but you could try typing it in manually and see if it does anything. But it might just not show it as a result.
Maybe one of these days we could do a side by side since you have it through.
Yeah, no, yeah, sure. I mean, that would be really interesting. But yeah, so that's another thing. Depending on the platform that you have it through, some of the functionality might be a little bit different, or just depending on how you have it set up. But I'm going to go back to my slide real quick. But I'll just show you. So you can also use the wildcard truncation. So you could use the question mark to capture variance in spelling, and then the asterisk as truncation. So diabetes, asterisk would search like diabetes, diabetic, etc. And so that's another set of, those are other ways that you can search as well. And different searches will give kind of different results. So these are all just different things that you could kind of play around with. So like, let's say we have a sample clinical scenario. So in adults with diabetes mellitus, is metformin or insulin more effective at reducing HbA1c levels? So this is a classic, of course, PICO search. So you have your patient, your intervention, your comparison, and your outcome. So adults with diabetes mellitus, intervention metformin, comparison insulin, and outcome reduced HbA1c levels. And EMBASE actually has a PICO search functionality. that you can use. Explode is the default, but you can do it as major or as DE, or just an index term. And so it's just right there at the top. So you can put in your population intervention comparison outcome. And if you want, you can also add in different study designs as well. So that's also another helpful search. It can kind of, especially with students, it can kind of force them to think of those different facets in that way and break them out specifically. And then it also has the PV wizard, which is for pharmacovigilance. So you can monitor drug interactions, adverse drug reactions, drug toxicity, and unexpected outcomes of drug treatment. So this is for working pharmacists as well, but also could be for hospitals or anyone that is dealing with pharmacovigilance, just kind of wants to keep tabs on drug adverse events and outcomes. And it could be kind of helpful because you can search like the FDA site for that, but it's being what it is. It's, you know, some government websites are easier to search than others, and the FDA is not particularly user-friendly in that regard. So you can use the PV wizard and just type in the drug name, and you can search for, you know, drug comparison drugs. So you can search for adverse drug reactions, drug toxicity, drug interactions, unexpected outcomes of drug treatment, special situations for pharmacovigilance. And as you type it in, you can kind of see what it is. And it does kind of a canned search for you. So I'll go back to EMBASE and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. So we can do PICO. So does anyone have a PICO search that they want to try out? So we can just do so we could do, you know, we'll use non-insulin dependent diabetes. We can do metformin, and you can add the synonyms if you want. Sure, why not? Let's do it. And then insulin. We'll add the synonym, and we'll do HbA1c. And so we can, and then that'll show us the 15,000 results for that particular search. And you can see like that's just a huge number of searches, and especially since we added all of those synonyms. Who has time to type all that out? I don't, but it'll pull up those results, and then you can further filter by study type, so you can search your randomized controlled trials and pull those up. And if we go back to our main search page, I'll also show you the PV wizard really quickly. So name a drug that you might have that you want information on in terms of pharmacovigilance. We could even do the SARS-CoV. Yeah, or let's see. I think I did.
There's a couple in the chat if you want to.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. Okay, what have we got in the chat? Hold on. Semaglutide. All right. That's the one I saw first. So we'll do adverse drug reaction, drug toxicity, drug interactions, special situation. Okay. We can do the next step. We can add the variants. Yeah, the trade name and the title or abstract. Great. We'll do the next step. Okay, that's what it does. Next step, so you can just kind of see special situations. So it's just adding, if we want, and we could modify this if we wanted to. So like if we wanted to do that, but it's also, you can feel free to kind of use this to take a peek under the hood and see how. So let's not limit that. And so we have a whole bunch. So we have about 3,000 drug-drug interactions, case reports. So we could see, we could limit by study types. We could limit it to human and, retrospective studies and cohort analyses. But yeah, you can just kind of see what comes up. And, you could again use kind of that, the triple filter as well, to do that. So now I'll turn it over to everyone. Any final questions or anything else that you wanted me to show you?
I have one more comment. If you scroll down into those results, there was something about leg cramps, and I just find EMBASE brings back a lot of junk a lot of the time, and it's really kind of hard to provide the results to a researcher because you spend so much time having to filter out the things that are not great. So I'm wondering why leg cramps.
Sure.
You went
And you
by
could,
it.
I mean, because it's basically looking for any kind of adverse drug reaction. So, I mean, that is, an adverse drug reaction. However, if you, you could look at, diseases, or you can look at like side effects. So you could click on like adverse drug reaction, side effects. You could limit, to the different types of side effects that you're looking for. So the PV wizard by its definition is going to be extremely broad. So maybe for this, you would want to limit it to like using the triple filter as opposed to using the PV wizard for that. So it's just, again, it's a matter of kind of like the precision versus the recall, and different results are going to give you different items as well. So, and yeah, you're right, because EMBASE is broad and it has broader coverage. Not every article is good. That's true of like kind of any database. And so, yeah, it has its pros and cons, just like any database, I think. So it has its things that it's good at, it has its things that it's not as good at, it has different features. Some of them work different ways, and everyone's going to have their own preference too in terms of how they search, and and each institution that you serve is going to have different needs as well. So ask your librarian if EMBASE is right for you. It may be, it may not be, but yeah. So it looks like Kyle has shared the link in the chat for the next meeting. But any final comments or questions or anything else? Well, it has been great having you. You've all been a wonderful audience with fantastic questions. So I hope that this was useful for you and that you picked up some new techniques. So,
Thank you very much, Kelly. That was great.